Episode 6, an encounter at the post office in London, and how to avoid getting ripped off by Mozart in Vienna. The British are famous, amongst other things, for their class system, and nothing reflects this more than the Royal Mail. You can post your letter with a first or a second class stamp, with a respective price differential, naturally. As far back as I remember, mail in London arrived twice a day, even on Saturdays. Of course, the first-class mail arrived first, in the morning, but you got everything else by tea time anyway. And none of this silly North American mailbox arrangement here. No, someone personally pushes your letters through your door. Mum's mail slides with a gentle slam on the hallway floor, which is usually fine. But if it's been raining and you get plasticized junk mail, well, you are treated to your very own indoor skating rink. It does propel you faster down the tile entrance, which I suppose is a good thing if you're in a hurry. However, like everywhere else, the postal system has fallen into disuse, and the cuts have set in. Local post offices are being closed and centralized, and British posties are not happy. Strikes are quite common. Our local one has been spared and is staying open, for now at least. A charming East Indian family run the most efficient and friendly outlet you could ever hope to experience on the rare occasion you might need to buy a stamp or send a parcel. But that's not all. You can also change your currency here, commission-free. A bonus. So before our Vienna jaunt, I dropped by to get some euros. Designing the new EU money must have been a delightful challenge for people who do this kind of thing for a living. I mean, how often do you get to design and create the look for a whole new currency? Unfortunately, the modern minimalism scourge overtook this project, and if you've recently handled any euro bills, you know exactly what I mean. The notes are so small. They're the size of Monopoly money. I cannot imagine how many EU committees were involved in this disaster. The nice lady at the post office counted out the flimsy-coloured slips for me, and I surrendered £200 of real currency. In return, she pushed me a little bundle wrapped with an elastic that fit perfectly into the palm of my hand. "Have a nice holiday," she smiled, "and remember to bring me a little gift." So I did. Mum and I bought Mozart Kugel, small Viennese chocolates in gold wrappers, with a picture of the composer, white wig and all, stuck on the top. Honestly, a couple of them look more valuable than the notes I paid to get them. And Austrian shopkeepers seem to think so too. We found ourselves comparison shopping on our last morning. At Stephanplatz, these little delicacies were selling for almost €2 each. That's about $3 in real money. Yet near the National Museum, thronging with tourists, we found a small souvenir shop where you could buy a bag of these treats for the cost of a cappuccino, and that's a really good deal. But I won't say how much in case you get one of these as a gift. We arrived home from our trip to find a large envelope from TfL, which stands for Transport for London. For some reason, the Transport Marketing Department decided it would be cool to write it cap T, lowercase f, and cap L. It just looks like a mistake. If you remember, Mum had been caught on camera violating a traffic act, jutting into a painted box on the road without being able to exit immediately. I'd written a pitiful letter in her defense, worthy of a Pulitzer, I must say, explaining she was a penniless little old lady and that the hefty fine would tip her over her financial edge. I decided not to include the bit that I'd written about her bursting into tears on opening the TfL envelope, but was tempted to add that she would have to give away her beloved pets if they pressed ahead. Mum opened this new letter gingerly, and I watched her read it over breakfast. Her expression was grim and getting grimmer. I wasn't holding out much hope. I could see that this transgression essay was 3 pages long. Was this a good use of a civil servant's time, I wondered. The back page was a bad photocopy of the dastardly deed caught on camera, and the first page was a long detailed diatribe about the traffic violation, noting the time this happened. Mum's criminal activity lasted a full 34 seconds, by the way. By page 2, the tone was changing slightly. TFL, oh really, it sounds too much like TTFN. Anyway, TFL was willing to make a goodwill gesture. Mum was absolved, but, we weren't to get too excited, she must understand this didn't mean she would be let off next time. She was so jubilant she choked on her toast and started coughing, and I was concerned and leapt up to help. She waved me away and recovered her breath. "It's okay," she assured me. She didn't need the Heineken maneuver. We're obviously spending too much time in beer culture. Mum declared she would write a letter to the woman at TFL and thank her profusely. Well, this whole thing has at least added 2 more stamps to the Royal Mail's coffers. The news that we'd saved ourselves £60 was encouraging, and I decided that if I ever moved back to London, I'd start a company writing T lowercase FL begging letters for travel violators. The news that we'd saved ourselves £60 was encouraging, and I decided that if I ever moved back to London, the first thing I'd do, of course, would be to encourage TFL to make it all caps, but then I'd start a company writing begging letters for traffic violators. But secondly, I'd have to insist the news that we'd saved ourselves £60 was encouraging, and I decided that if I ever moved back to London, I'd start a company writing TFL begging letters for traffic violators. But first, I'd have to insist that the city stops this silly lowercase business. It can be TFL in caps and be taken seriously. Oh, and I'd need to be paid in pounds sterling. No euros, thank you very much. Tomorrow I look forward to lining up at the post office to give the nice lady there her chocolate. And I can't wait to see her face.